We had a soon-to-be, I guess, in a half-decade Hall of Famer retire. So we got to talk about Joey Votto off the top. Also, a managerial firing, a general managerial extension, eh,
Ugh.
silence for a moment, and then three, two, one,
Mailbag.
It's a mailbag. Jack Peter, just baseball show for Friday, August 23rd. As always, who's it brought to us by?
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether it be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JUSTBASEBALL. Why? You get a first bet offer back up to $1,500 in bonus bets. So, download BetMGM, use code JUSTBASEBALL. After you do, place your favorite wager. If that were to lose, you're going to get that amount back that you put on it, up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. And if you win, congratulations, you won a freaking bet. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions apply. Perry Minasian got extended. What a world we live in.
I've got that after Joey Votto and Scott Service.
I think it's more impactful than Votto retiring or Service getting fired.
I'm with you. What a world we live in, but we should probably start with
All
Joey
right.
Votto.
All right,
No
fine. All right,
fair.
fine.
Okay, serious face. Joey Votto has announced his retirement from baseball. He did that on Wednesday, and Joey Votto is I don't want to say surely going to the Hall, but I do think that Joey Votto is going to be a Hall of Famer. I do firmly believe that this guy, one of the best baseball players to ever come out of Canada, an MVP, a six-time All-Star, a Gold Glover. I can run through the numbers for him. It was a career 294, 409, 511 slash, which is a 920 OPS. This guy over 2,100 hits, over 350 home runs, over 1,100 RBIs. He was the active leader in walks drawn at 1,365. This guy led Major League Baseball in walks drawn 5 times. He led Major League Baseball in on base percentage 7 times and led Major League Baseball in OPS twice. He's one of the better hitters of this generation. He's one of the better baseball leaders of this generation. I watched the video that I think the Cincinnati Reds put out of all of their current players talking about Joey Votto and his mentorship, what that meant to them. This guy is eccentric. This guy is creative. This guy is thoughtful. And he was a hell of a baseball player, too. He's got a long career in baseball ahead of him, regardless of what he does. If he wants to get into public service, he's got a long career of public service ahead of him, too. He's one of the most beloved characters in baseball. And the fact that he could do that in Cincinnati, Ohio, and become one of the faces of baseball around is a testament to Joey Votto. This is an all-time first baseman that we're talking about that decided to hang it up on Wednesday.
Yeah, one of the few future Hall of Famers that might be a better person than he is a player, even though he's a Hall of Fame level caliber player. I saw on social media there was some people that were pretty upset that the Blue Jays didn't call him up to face the Reds because I think it's in an upcoming series to give him kind of a curtain call, give him a goodbye to the fans of Cincinnati. But Joey Votto even said it himself that he didn't want to get called up unless he thought that he was good enough. And in his, retirement video that he made that he posted to his Instagram, in the caption, he basically said, "I'm sorry, Canada. I wanted to play in front of you, but I simply wasn't good enough." It's a guy who's self-aware too and just a legend of our game. And I think he's a definite Hall of Famer. His ability to get on base is only rivaled by all-time greats. Now, I know you see 2,135 hits. You might see 356 homers and say, well, those numbers are a little bit short, but not every Hall of Famer has 500 home runs or 3,000 hits. And he's filled up the stat sheet in so many different ways. And he also, I think the Hall of Fame is about telling the story of Major League Baseball. And I don't think that you can properly tell the story of 21st century Major League Baseball without Joey Votto in it. So I just tweeted out, "See you in Cooperstown, legend," when he retired. He's one of my favorites. I loved the interview that he had. He was up in the booth and he was talking about how he loves the uniqueness of every different stadium
Yeah.
and how this isn't a uniform game. Those are his quotes. And that really put that in perspective because I never thought about that before. That, every NBA court, it's the same exact dimensions, it's the same exact height of the rim. Football field, it's the same exact everything. You might have different weather involved, but every baseball stadium is just a little bit different. I know the dimensions are still kind of the same, but it does feel like you got a different feel, especially how much baseball is impacted by the weather, different cities around the country. So Joey Votto will always have a place in my heart.
No
To be
doubt,
cliche.
man. And I'm not doing a LeBron thing where I was like, oh, yeah, that's one of my favorite sayings. But that was like long standing one of my favorite things about baseball is that everywhere you went, it was different. And if you're at Fenway, if you're at Camden Yards, if you're at Yankee Stadium, if you're at Wrigley, it matters like what ballpark you're at. We talk about guys in the scheme of their ballpark. We talk about their seasons. Hey, is this guy going to perform well? He plays at the Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah.
Is this guy going to tick up offensively because he's playing at Great American Ballpark? That's something that I love about the game.
Yeah, me too.
And we make money to talk about the game. Like we have a living of talking about the game. And in his like one game in the booth, he decided to put that better than anybody has ever put something ever.
To that
He
point, I never even thought of it. And like you're
really
right. Like our job is to talk about baseball and the way he put that. Like you don't have in Golden State, Steph Curry isn't a better 3-point shooter because the 3-point there is a little bit
no.
further to the
The
basket.
only time you hear about that in basketball is depth perception when a college team gets to the Final Four and they're playing in a football stadium.
Something
And then
like
in football, it's like, oh, it might be raining at this place that doesn't have a retractable roof. Great American Ballpark is unique. Like
Coors Field.
Pittsburgh has the Clemente Wall. Coors Field is unique. Miami had that atrocity in left center that they moved outside. Like every ballpark has a story, regardless of how cookie cutter it sounds or it looks. And Joey Votto, I think, appreciated everything about that. He appreciated uniqueness. He appreciates uniqueness, and I think he's going to be really unique in his post playing career. So very excited to see what's next for Joey Votto. But I think a trip to Cooperstown in 5 to 10 years will be on that list.
I think so as well.
Scott Servais was canned as the manager of the Seattle Mariners. Scott Servais is done. They are on a skid. They've lost 8 of 10. They are out of the wild card picture firmly at this point. They're 7.5 out of that final wild card spot in the American League. Scott Servais has managed a Mariners team that has been exciting at points, has been flawed the entire time. I'd say there's always been a flaw, right? Like
I know, I just think it's funny the way you said
yeah,
it.
but like I know they've been exciting. I think this was the year that the optimism turned to pessimism because you realize, oh shit, they really can't hit. Oh shit, they're on a historic pace in terms of striking out as a lineup. Oh shit, there's nobody besides Julio, and Julio wasn't even good before the All-Star break. This is a culmination of, I think, the roller coaster ride that Mariners fans have been on the last several years, where it was, oh my gosh, we're exciting. Oh my gosh, we're getting there. Okay, how do you sustain? It's really hard to sustain success at the major league level. And if Seattle misses the postseason this year, it feels a little bit more pessimistic than it would have felt the previous 3 years because you were young and you were exciting. And now you have the best starting rotation in baseball. What are you going to do with that? And the answer, unfortunately, has been nothing. And I think that's probably why Jerry DiPoto and the rest of the Mariners brass decided it was probably time to let Scott Servais go.
And we're not in the locker rooms with these players.
Cameron Maybin was. Did you watch that?
Exactly. That's what I was going to point to. So Cameron Maybin on foul territory went on a mini rant about Scott Servais, talking about his time in I was it in Seattle with Servais. Regardless, Servais was the manager when he was a player, and he talked about Servais's lack of communication. Open door policy was not quite open for Scott Servais, and in this day and age, it does seem like the best communicators, the best managers that help the players. It might not be, you might not necessarily see it on the field, but the guys who back their players and do have an open door policy to help, those guys seem to be lauded. A guy like Aaron Boone is a good example of a guy who you'll never hear say a negative thing about his players. I'm not saying Scott Servais is going out, but clearly the Yankees like him because the players really seem to like him. I think if the Mariners players really like Servais, he wouldn't be out of a manager job because, like you said, the Mariners have had flaws, but it's really hard for a manager to get this offense to start hitting. They've brought in multiple different hitting coaches. They've fired multiple hitting coaches. And with Seattle, Servais has a 514 winning percentage while routinely being on the lower end of payrolls. So I don't necessarily think from the production on the field, it's obviously been, a disappointment for Mariners fans. But when you also consider that the Mariners as a franchise have also not really been that good. And these past couple of years have been some of their better years. While it hasn't resulted in a championship, they don't have a championship in their franchise history. So I think, based off what Maben said and based off where I think other teams value coaches, the crux of the issue, I think, is Servais's relationship with the players. And I think that's even highlighted by the guy they brought in, Wilson. What's his first name? Dan Wilson? That's the guy who they brought in to replace Scott Servais. Never been on a big league coaching staff or managed at any level, but he served as a special assignment coordinator for the club in spring training. And I read in that article from Ken Rosenthal on The Athletic that he has a really good relationship with catcher Cal Raleigh. So the fact that they brought in a guy with no managerial experience to relieve the guy who has a 514 winning percentage tells me that the Mariners think you do not have a good relationship with the players. This guy does. That's who we want now. That's my deductive reasoning.
Well, and interesting to note that Servais was initially hired, I think, by Jerry Dipoto in LA in 2011
I think they're
as an
really good
AGM.
friends. I think they're
They're
really
good
good
friends.
friends too.
Yeah, they're good friends.
Tough.
And he immediately jumped into the front office. He was not in the dugout. He was in the front office after his playing career. So he was an AGM before becoming the manager of the Seattle Mariners in 2016. It's a good run, 8 years. Like that's a really good run for a big league manager. But part of me was thinking, and Maben played 30 games for Seattle in 2018, so that was year 3 for Scott Servais. So there are guys that have played 5 years under him that I'm sure could paint a more vivid picture. But I thought that was really interesting that Cameron Maben was even willing to be on a hot mic and talk about. So there's got to be some truth to that.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about the media spats over recent years that I've seen come from Seattle. Do you remember last year there were some hot button things about Cal Raleigh? Like Cal Raleigh said some things and then Scott Servais had to refute them in press conferences. I don't remember exactly what the line of talking was from Cal Raleigh, but I remember he got in a little bit of hot water for something he said, and Servais needed to, refute it and essentially kind of air him out in a scrum. Cal Raleigh, that happened. The other thing that happened was George Kirby. You remember Kirby last year when Kirby said, yeah, I shouldn't have been out there for the 7th or something like that. And Servais said, yeah, he shouldn't have said that. Like he had to deal with that again in another media scrum the following day. George Kirby and Cal Raleigh. Are they problem children? They don't really seem like it. Kirby puts AirPods in and listens to EDM throwing into a 9 pocket in his offseason. I just don't think that guy is going to be the gung-ho, I'm going to be a renegade and create a media shitstorm. Like, I don't think that's him.
I don't
think
know. Is
you might have
EDM
just hit a boiling point.
We'd hear about new music from boomers saying it's ruining the generation. Could it be an EDM problem?
It depends. If it's like a Flume or an Odessa that he was listening to, I don't think that that's the problem. But if he was, on like the floss trip or like, yeah, Diplo, whatever it is, like it could be an issue.
I'm just saying, don't rule it out. I'm not saying blame it on EDM. I'm just saying,
is it Deadmau 5?
Yeah, don't rule, electronic music out of the problem in Seattle.
Got it. Fair. Did you see the Cal Raleigh thing? I saw you typing away.
I was looking for it. I couldn't really find much.
Yeah, it's tough because what are you going to type in, like Cal Raleigh comments? Like
and then also like it's a big Reddit thread too, so it might have gotten deep into like the depths of the internet.
Yeah, like I'm not going there.
But I'm not going there either.
Interesting, and I think Seattle has already viewed this as a season that is run beyond their grasp, which sucks.
It's a very professional way to say it. You can just say the season is over.
Yes, slipped away.
I mean, it's tough.
Like, is it over? They're 7.5 back. It feels
Yeah,
kind of over,
kind
but
of feels over. I mean, you have the basically the same record as the Tampa Bay Rays. Is the season over for the Rays or is it not?
it's over.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
probably over.
yeah, I think we're just like, well, they have Logan Gilbert. You know, they all those starters pitched against the Dodgers and they never had a chance the whole time. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Season is not over for the LA Angels. In fact, extending GM Perry Minasian could galvanize the LA Angels. They are my sleeper wild card.
They should be relegated. I'm serious. Make them a AAA team because this is ridiculous. I mean, this is what. Sure, Artie Moreno and Perry Minasian just being buddies and hanging out and making whatever moves they want to do. And
Like, how on earth are you extending the guy that put everybody on waivers last year? Everybody.
it might. So I think this is really disrespectful for me to even think, but I don't get it. It must be Artie Moreno is making all the moves and just telling Perry Minasian what to do. And Artie Moreno likes telling his GM what to do, so he kept him. Because with Perry Minasian's track record, how can you tell me that he deserves an extension? How can you? You can't.
No.
I'm so willing to hear why. Angels fans, if you have reasons why Perry Minasian is actually the secretly great GM, please drop them in the YouTube comments. I'll read them all. But that's the only way I can come to this, that it makes sense in my mind, is that Artie Moreno is basically saying, these are the moves that we want to make. Perry, go do them. And Perry says, okay. And he does them. Because how else could you constitute an extension here? How?
I don't know. You're bought into the ineptitude. Like, hey, we're going to see what depths that we can go to. We're going to see how quickly we can get a first round pick to the big leagues. Why is Christian Moore not there yet?
I don't know. But is it also because does Artie think he's like really good at drafting? Because they have gotten Neto, I guess, and
like the
Shenwell,
Ohapi deal
Ohapi.
looks all right. Yeah.
I mean,
Not all right. The Ohapi deal looks good. I would say I downgraded it to all right because Brandon Marsh has been good for the
yeah.
Phillies. But like Ohapi is a great get for the
Yeah, they won that trade 100%.
So like, all right, you win the Ohapi deal.
Actually, he also got 4 prospects for Luis Garcia. I'm
Yeah,
talking
there
about
you go. You
That's
nail
actually
the Neto pick. I don't know. And again, we're trying to play devil's advocate to this is the dumbest thing we've seen in sports in quite some time. And I lean more towards that.
I commented LMAO under our post about it. I don't have anything else to say. Just laughing my ass off.
It's
Good.
just
Let's see what happens.
we talk organizational ineptitude, man. Like the Angels have embodied that over the last 2.5 years, and they're rewarding that now.
Yeah, it's like the Knicks continually having James Dolan like make decisions forever.
Like, it's not working.
Not
Can
working.
we change?
Yeah.
Can we change something that isn't working? Yeah, no, I think we're gonna stick with this actually.
It's like, all right, go ahead. Let's see how you do. Let's see how you do. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. I feel for Angels fans. I mean, this is a nightmare.
This is brutal. I mean, you're handcuffed to this situation now.
And all these young guys who were saying, "Oh yeah, these were all good picks. The Angels are worse than the A's." So how good are they?
And they have one of, if not the worst farm system in Major League Baseball.
Yep. Congratulations, you took Christian Moore, and he hit a bunch of home runs early.
They're in as bad a spot as any organization in baseball right now.
But they extended their GM.
Usually this is when you fire your GM, but instead they opted to extend the GM.
That's like the Rockies being like, all right, Charlie Blackmon will give you another extension after this.
Well, they might just because of the vibes. They bring people to the ballpark on vibes.
They might.
Perry, I don't know if Perry's vibes are as good as Charlie Blackmon. I would doubt it.
Yeah, I would take the under on whatever you said.
The under on vibes.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get to the mailbag here in a moment. Before that, I want to tell you about our friends at Game Time. New friend of the show is Game Time. They are now an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. You get killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Use it for last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, list goes on. get a lowest price guarantee. You get the panoramic seat views, and I love the all-in pricing toggle feature. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code JUSTBASEBALL, all caps, one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code JUSTBASEBALL for $20 off. What time is it? Game time.
I like that. Also, I also like saving $20 on your next set of tickets. But remember, go to the profile section, put in promo code JustBaseball. It's not where you download the app, check out with your tickets, and the promo is at the end. As soon as you download the app, put it in there, your first purchase will be $20 off. I have a lot of, people have been in my DMs asking if I'm going to the Yankee game. I will be at the Yankee game on Saturday, and people want to buy tickets. Use Game Time, right? You're going to get all in pricing, but also wait a little bit. You don't have to buy them so soon because the pricing goes down. Highly recommend Game Time, best ticketing app by far. Thank you, Game Time, for the promo. We'll always take $20 off tickets. I know how expensive parking is in tickets, and beers are $50. I know how expensive it is to go to a game. Let's get $20 off the top.
Yeah, but you're paying for Soto, so it's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm paying a lot.
Go get that caviar burger.
We're paying a lot to go watch Juan Soto.
You go get that sushi behind home. Damn.
No, it's the steak sandwich, the LaBelle steak sandwich that I spend about $23 every single time just for the sandwich. I'm telling you, it's worth it. I think it is. I'm going to go on another limb. I think it's one of the best things you can get at a ballpark. And I've been to 22 ballparks now. It's not biased. That steak sandwich, it is expensive, but it is so damn good with the horseradish sauce. I love it.
You've been to more ballparks than I have.
Arms beating both of us, though.
I know. Yeah. Arms, what, 2 away at this point?
Yeah. He's been to 30. So technically 32 parks. I haven't factored in the older parks. Yeah. But just in terms of parks I've been to, I'm at 22.
Yeah. You're at 22 of the 30 home teams.
Yes.
I think I'm in the teens or something. By the way, I'm very excited. So minor league season ends on September 22nd. September 25 and 26, I'm going to PNC. I'm going to go get the Renegade Duck. It's my first trip to PNC.
And you got to do a review.
Yeah, I'll do a review of the Renegade Duck. That'll be exciting. Yeah. So, all right, now
good.
We can get into the mailbag. I know. I'm excited. I'm for the pickle and the pierogi and the pot roast. I'm excited.
I was shocked. And I was like, this is genuinely tasty. Like, if it wasn't 7 feet long, like, I'd enjoy it as a hot dog at a stadium.
I'm really excited, man. And it's like, I'm wrapping up year 3 working for the Pirates AAA affiliate, and I've never been to that ballpark. I'm like, I might as well just go.
That's moved into my top 5 ballparks, point blank period.
See, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
But now we get to the mailbag, okay? And we're going to start. We took questions from X and from Instagram. By the way, I've officially graduated from calling it Twitter. I'm not living in the past anymore. It's X moving forward.
For me, it's still always going to be Twitter.
Yeah, like I agree. And I'm going to say tweet, but it's X. I tweeted on X. I didn't post on X. Okay.
I tweeted on Twitter. I tweeted on Twitter.
I X'd on X. So thank you for Xing us. Mm-hmm. And thank you for commenting on the Instagram as well. First question is from X, Lil DJ 227. What size is the DJ? Pretty small. What wild card team in the hunt have the best starting rotations left? Good question. Straightforward question. Where do you go?
So for the best rotations left, I'll start in the National League. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves. Chris Sale, Max Fried, Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Charlie Morton. When comparing to the rest, those 5 seem to rise above the rest, especially with how good Fried looked against Philly. That was a big start for him. Sale's probably going to win the Cy Young. Reynaldo Lopez returned from the IL, 5 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts. Schwellenbach has been really impressive since being called up. And you still got Chuck Morton, who can pitch on a broken leg. So why wouldn't they be the best rotation among all the wild card teams left? And that's why I am still holding out hope for the Braves. I still am. I still think if they make the playoffs, which I think they will, that they're going to still be a tough out. That offense, though, is what we have to focus on. Will Albies come back? Will Riley come back? Will all of these guys? Will it look like a Braves lineup just without Ronald Acuna Jr.? Then I'm going to pounce because that bullpen is so good. But we need to see if the offense is good enough before investing.
Correct. The National League, Atlanta was my pick. the American League, Kansas City, dude. Like Seth Lugo is looking like one of the best pitchers in baseball all year long. This is going to be a culmination thing, and I think he's going to finish top 3 in Cy Young voting. Cole Reagans, we talked about him on yesterday's show. Like, I don't think he's going to finish top 3 in Cy Young voting, but I think he's damn good. He was an all-star for a reason. Brady Singer has a 3.11 ERA and 6 starts since the break. And yet I haven't mentioned the best starter for the Kansas City Royals since the All-Star break. Michael Wacha in 6 starts has a 2.15 ERA since the Midsummer Classic. So you're telling me that I have 4 of Lugo, Reagans, Singer, Wacha for Kansas City, and I have an MVP contender in Bobby Witt Jr.? I mean, dude, like I think that this Royals rotation showed its promise at the beginning of the year, but now they're showing like production in August, which is really what I like to see.
And it gets even better now that Michael Lorenzen is kind of a dog.
Yeah.
So in 4 starts since being acquired by the Royals, he's thrown 22 innings. He's only allowed 5 earned runs for a 1.99 ERA. And you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, well, Michael Lorenzen is just, having a few good starts, Peter. Why is that a big addition? Well, Lance Brzdowski, who we've talked about a number of times, friend of the program, has been on the show. He has a newsletter where, he's identifying these pitchers, changes, talking about usage, moving forward. And I got an email a few days ago from him about Michael Lorenzen. And I looked into it. Sweeper usage went from under 5% to 15%. Curveball usage doubled. Changeup usage nearly doubled. The root of this change is way less fastballs. And these changes have doubled his swinging strike rate, which is now sitting around league average at 12%. So I think the Royals actually ID'd something in Michael Lorenzen saying, hey, we don't have to throw your fastball as much as you're doing this. Let's start working on your breaking balls a little bit. He's been throwing a lot more of them, and he's been really, really successful. Even that game against Johnny Cueto, I know the Angels offense isn't that good, but he looked fantastic in that start. And he went into Great American Ballpark against a hot Reds offense and looked good. Like, these aren't the best opponents ever, but he's dicing through them. You can only pitch against the people in front of you, and he's pitching to an ERA under 2 against them with these changes. So you add him to Wacha, Singer, Reagans, and Lugo. This team is really good. They are. They're good. I feel like we've been underrating them kind of all year. They are not to be ignored.
We've also given them their flowers. I think we've justly been giving them their flowers.
I think we've been giving them their flowers, but we haven't been, for example, Royals fans get pissed at us every single time that we drop our power rankings, right? And the power rankings, the Royals have been kind of middle of the pack type team, when in reality, they're definitely in the top 10 and they're closing in on the best teams in baseball. Like, we're giving them their flowers as being much improved, young, fun.
Yeah.
But remember how we grade teams based on expectations? Like, oh, this team's been terrible when they're like 3 games above 500 because they deserve to be. The Royals are now moving my expectations. I'm going to start speaking about the Royals like they are one of the best teams in the American League, and they deserve to be so.
Dude, if they get there, they can make some shit happen. I firmly believe that they can make something happen if they get there.
Yeah, but what about on the road where Bobby Witt Jr. can it?
Forgot about the voice. We're 24 hours removed from me hearing the voice, and I forgot about it. And thank you for bringing it back into my life. When about Bobby Witt Jr.?
What about Bobby Witt Jr.? He can it on the road.
Okay, next one has to do with offensive duos, and this comes to us from Dylan Winnick 32 on X. The question is, when was the last time we saw an offensive duo like Judge and Soto carry a high-performing offense on their own at such a high level? Who are some of the greatest hitting duos of all time? It's a good question. Greatest hitting duos of all time, like obviously you go back to Ruth and Gary, like Soto and Judge.
I got the numbers.
You have the numbers? Okay.
I pulled some elite duos.
So I did the recency thing. Can you answer the back half and then I'll answer the front half?
Absolutely. You want me to start with the back half?
Yeah, just start with the back half.
So if we're talking about the greatest duos of all time, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig are atop the list. From 1925 to 1934, this duo averaged 16.8 WAR combined between the two. But let's go a little bit deeper. What about Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews from 1954 to 1966 with the Braves? They averaged 13.8 WAR per season and cumulatively Among all duos in Major League history, they are number one. A combined WAR between Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews, 179.8. But also, Willie McCovey and Willie Mays for the San Francisco Giants from 1959 to 1971. Cumulative WAR, 160. Average annual WAR, 12.3. We all know about Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. Then Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent, 1997 to 2002. They averaged 13.8 WAR combined. But Aaron Judge and Juan Soto this season, cumulative WAR, 16.5. And remember, we're talking to you at the end of August. So those are like the 5 best duos.
Yeah.
That I could find. And there's a couple, right? There's, some on the Philadelphia A's I saw like 1908. Honus Wagner had a great duo partner, but I'm like, those are 120 years ago. So as close as we can get to kind of modern era baseball, Ruth and Gehrig, Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews, Willie Mays and Willie McCovey, Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. And in terms of cumulative WAR in one season, they're as good as any duo ever.
These are the guys. It's funny, man. Like, I was looking back at the early 1900s thing, and I talked with Clay Snowden a good bit about this. It's just like the funny old baseball names. Like, everybody's got Mean Slinging Joe Montgomery. Like, 1905, man, that 1-2 punch, they each threw 850 innings that year.
Yeah.
Like, this guy had a 40-win season. But the fact that these guys are up against Mean Slinging Joe Williams and like everybody else is absolutely insane. I looked at it from an OPS lens, and I was just looking at the prolific duos in recent memory. When was the last time was the question here? And, I just went by OPS. Like, these two are 1 and 2 in Major League Baseball in OPS right now.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, it's amazing. They are 1 and 2. Bobby Witt Jr. is the only other guy over 1,000. Acuna and Olsen were 3 and 4 in OPS last year, but they had so much help, right? It was Austin Riley and Albies and, everybody. Like, Arcia even hit well. Jordan and Jose Altuve were 2 and 4 in OPS in 2022, but that team had Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman and, what was it? Pena? That was Pena's first year in 2020.
And Maldonado?
Martin Maldonado, yep, who was playing over the guy before Yainer Diaz. Mookie and JD Martinez in 2018 with the Boston Red Sox. They combined for 75 homers and were 2 and 3 in Major League Baseball in OPS. But they had a good Benintendi. They had a young Devers who had like a 730. Xander Bogaerts had a low 800s, and then Steve Pearce, like 50 games, had a 900 OPS. So there was ammo around them. 2011, Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder combined for 81 homers and were both top 5 in OPS. Corey Hart had 28 homers, I think, and an 866 OPS. And then I went to David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez. I went to Albert Pujols and Jim Edmonds when Edmonds was standing on his head. But I think my firm answer is Bonds and Jeff Kent in 2000 when they finished 1-2 in MVP voting.
Yeah.
I remember Ellis Burks had a 1025 OPS in 122 games that year. You got to remember. I don't remember. I was 2 years old. But
yeah, I was 2 years old.
Ellis Burks apparently was awesome that year. In terms of people that I remember, like that Mookie JD Martinez tandem was big in 2018. Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder. Like, that evoked some of those memories because that offense was Braun and Fielder. And this is Soto and Judge.
None of those ones that you named can compare to Soto and Judge right now.
By WAR, yeah, none of them.
We have to go back to the greatest duos of all time, and the only one ahead in cumulative WAR between the two guys is Ruth and Gehrig, and Soto and Judge are 0.3 away from them.
Yeah.
0.3. It's August. They're going to easily catch them and become the greatest duo of all time in one season.
Soto's DRS might tank.
He's been totally fine defensively. So even like I'm looking, it's like how Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews couldn't compare. Mays and McCovey. No, they can't, because Aaron Judge is going for the Triple Crown and he just hit his 48th home run as we're sitting here recording. and the game ain't over yet, so he might have hit 49 by the end of our recording.
August 22nd.
He's going to probably hit 60 to 65 home runs. He's probably going to be in that range. Probably going to hit 340, drive in 130, 140. Juan Soto is going to hit 45 jacks while hitting 310. You're going to have like a 9-WAR player and a 10-WAR player on your team.
And it's crazy that Aaron Judge would be bagging groceries at Jewel Osco if it wasn't for teacher man Richard Shank perfecting this. You got to remember that.
Bagging groceries.
He'd be scanning. No, you'd go to self-checkout and he'd be pissed.
It's the most incredible thing I've watched as a Yankee fan. Also that too. I know we're just continuing to glaze them, but it's the most amazing thing I've watched. And they are clockwork. They are the greatest. I was talking to my dad on the phone too, because he's seen way more Yankees baseball than I have. He said Aaron Judge is the best player he's ever seen.
Yeah, I want to know what that sensation of Maris and Mantle in 61 was like.
I know.
Because Maris hit 61. Mantle, I think, had, 54? And he hit like 350. Mantle should have won MVP that year, but Maris hit 61.
Yeah.
I want to know what that season was like. But I think they had
I don't think it's
5.
this.
It might have been like it is kind of this.
I just don't. Maris couldn't put up the WAR totals that Judge could. He wasn't as good of an all-around player.
Right.
He just hit 61 that year.
I know. And Whitey Ford won the Cy Young on that team. Like that would have been. You need a time machine to go back to 1961.
Have you watched those any like documentaries on those? You know, I just soak up old baseball documentaries. So apparently during that,
you love old baseball, the Yankees,
baseball.
and like baseball documentaries. When I turn on the TV and it's not a live baseball event, I want to watch literally anything else other than baseball.
I just absorb old baseball documentaries. Right now I'm watching the Pete Rose one, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. We'll get into that at a later time. But back to the Maris thing. Like Maris, when he was chasing 61, nobody wanted him to beat Babe Ruth's record. Nobody. He was getting like threats. People did not like it at all. People were trying
stop hitting home runs.
No, seriously. I mean, they were trying to get in his head. Like they did not want this record broken, and Maris got it. It's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. But I think Judge, they were fine with him passing Maris, it seems.
Yeah.
Okay, next one here. This one has to do, like, this is kind of a fun game to play. And this comes from us, Merchant Jack on X. Which non-Hall of Fame enshrined player from each Contenders history would you add to make them a World Series favorite? The caveats are no steroids, must be retired. I like this one.
Love this one. This is one of the best questions we've ever received on the mailbag. This is an electric question.
This is very fun. I had a good time doing this. And I will say my precursor was I need to have watched this guy play when I was young. And except like there's one exception to that. It's the Yankee exception.
Here was mine. I can't. Like, I'm not just taking your best player ever and just throwing him on your team. I need to look at your team and see an area of need and then fill it with the best player for that one. Like, for example, the Phillies and Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt is a perfect one to add to the Phillies.
But he's a Hall of Famer.
Alec Bohm plays third. Oh.
That was in it. Oh, Peter. We're not cutting this. You're eating this live.
I'm eating this live. No.
That's so sad. That's
non-Hall of Fame enshrined player. I took some perfect ones. I guess I could go over my guys who are Hall of Famers.
You can just do that. Do that real quick, and then I'll actually play the game. Merchant Jack.
Dang it. All right. Well, here's somewhat of it. Richie Ashburn for the Phillies, I'd put in center. 2,200 hits in 15 seasons. He had a 58.1 career WAR. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he definitely is a Hall of Famer. Take him instead of Rojas in center. For the Dodgers, I'd love to put Sandy Koufax back in that rotation. For the Brewers, Robin Yount in center. They need a center fielder. He's actually probably the greatest Brewer of all time. Yankees, I went back and forth here so many times. Do I want Lou Gehrig at first? Do I want Mickey Mantle in center? Or do I want Mariano Rivera as the closer? I settled on Mantle just because I would get to watch a Mantle Soto Judge outfield. Oh my God. Guardians, I'd love to put Bob Feller in this rotation. Astros, give me Jeff Bagwell at first. And then the Orioles, I put Jim Palmer on the mound. I'm so sorry. I read the question wrong. I prepared all Hall of Famers.
So
And I
sad.
screwed up, and I apologize. For on Monday's episode, I'll just bring my answers to this
Okay.
off the top, and we'll go through it. My
Okay.
apologies.
My answers here. Start with Philly. I want to put the Flying Hawaiian in center. I got Shane Victorino. Victorino had some fun years as the center fielder, and I would love to see Victorino in center for Philly.
Such a good answer.
I'll let you react to these. The Dodgers, I was confused as to where I want Tommy Edman to play. Like, do I want him to play short? Do I want him to play center? I opted for center for Edman because, like, I think I can swap out Miguel Rojas and feel a little bit better about that than swapping out, a Kevin Kiermaier, who is just not needed offensively. By the way, hat off to Jason Hayward. 2023 was a hell of a season. I know it was a really rough 24. I'm hoping that a team out of it just like brings Jason Hayward on to be a veteran presence for the rest of this year.
Also, I think they're just going to put Kevin Kiermaier in center in the playoffs and just they know that they're going to have an auto out in their 9-hole, and he's just going to go play elite defense in center. I think the same thing with Tommy Edman too. Like, I don't think they care if either of those guys hit. They're just looking for offense from 1 through 7, and if Tommy Edman hits, if Kevin Kiermaier hits, good for them. But they're there for the defense.
Yep. So I put Edman in center, and I wanted to add a shortstop to the Dodgers. And tell me if this is fair. Although it's going to be fair because you chose fucking Hall of Famers. You cheated.
I cheated.
I want to take Red Sox Nomar and put him at short. Like, I want young Nomar Garciaparra. I didn't get to see young Nomar. I saw older Nomar. And I was just like, man, you would have been really good as a young shortstop, wouldn't you? If that's not fair, Rafael Furcal at shortstop. I would just like want, a consistent shortstop presence. Furcal sneaky hit 300 a couple seasons there. Milwaukee, CC Sabathia was arguably the greatest trade deadline acquisition in recent memory. CC Sabathia, I want to pull this up. And he was like really good in Cleveland. Don't get me wrong. CC Sabathia's ERA in Cleveland, 3.83 in over 1,500 innings. But this guy made 17 starts in a Brewers uniform. And I guess he was acquired a couple weeks before the deadline. 17 starts for the Milwaukee Brewers in 2008. CC Sabathia was 11-2 with a 1.65 ERA. And he threw 130 innings in 17 starts. He was a beast. And all I want is starting pitching to eat 7. And then you hand it over to Mizorowski and Devin Williams in the 8th and 9th. Like, give me that. So I went CC. Honorable mention, fucking Ben Sheets. Give me the best of Ben Sheets in the Brewers rotation. The Yankees, my only exception guy that I didn't see play, Don Mattingly at first, like easy. And, I know the deal. He should be in the Hall. He's not in the Hall. Houston, I want Juice at first base. Lance Berkman at first base. Give me that. Cleveland, I was a little torn. Help me decide. Center field help in Kenny Lofton? Do you want more power in Travis Hafner? Or do you want another starter in recently retired Corey Kluber?
I think we need the Klubs. I think we need Klubot.
You might just need frontline Klubot.
Yeah, we need frontline Klubot because I would love Lofton in center, but he's such a Guardian still to this day. I mean, that's such a Guardian player.
Somehow still fits the mold of the Cleveland Guardians.
And he would be amazing. Hafner at DH, but you also have Jhonkensy Noel. Like,
and Jhonkensy in right, and that experiment.
Yeah, I don't really I need the pitcher because if I could go Klubot, Bybee, Williams, we're cooking here.
Yeah.
Give me a Klubot.
Okay. I was also thinking maybe Cliff Lee, but I sided with Kluber because Kluber won multiple.
Oh shit! But Kluber
was just
Kluber. Better. He's Cleveland, while Cliff Lee, there's Philly involved. But when I think Guardians pitchers, Indians pitchers, I think Kluber first. Even though Lee was so good, Cliff Lee gave me nightmares as a Yankee fan. He put us in his back pocket every single time. Every time.
Yeah.
God, he was good. Hated him. Hated him growing up.
This is total guys naming dudes right now.
Yeah. Oh.
And then Baltimore, I want Zach Britton as the closer.
Ooh, I like that.
You've got ninth inning questions. Give me Zach Britton, man. Recently retired Zach Britton.
That's a great pull. Great pull. Off the top of my head, no, because you do have O'Hearn and Mountcastle, but like that year, Chris Davis.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know? No, but I think Britain's a great one. What about Tillman? Who was that guy? Chris Tillman? Do you remember?
Who?
I think Chris Tillman was like an all-star one year. You
Yeah,
remember that?
the starting pitcher?
I think so. I think he was an
Yeah,
all-star.
was it
Am I
Tillman? It might have been Tillman. I think you're right.
on crack there? I'm
No,
pretty
you're
sure
not. You're
Tillman was an
not.
all-star.
Yeah, he existed in like the bad O's years, I think. That was after Markakis and Adam Jones.
He was an all-star. I am a ball knower. In 2013, 371 and 206 innings.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'll
I
take
prefer Zach Britton.
yeah,
Thanks.
I'll take Britain. I remember
Okay.
Tillman making an all-star team, be like, what? What?
It was like who was it? David Lee making an all-star team for the Knicks. It's like,
Brock
wait,
Holt.
David Lee's an
I
all-star?
still remember that one. Brock.
Rockstar for life
Yeah.
with a Y instead of an I in life.
I'm still upset he was an all-star. He did not deserve it that year. I kind of forget who snubbed, but I still don't accept that all-star nomination.
Fair, understood. All right, next question comes from us from at Paint the Black BB on X. Out of all the trade deadline trades, which trades do you think have worked out the best, and which ones have worked out the worst? Good question.
I got some.
I got some. You go first.
We're talking about the worst trades at the deadline. The Orioles acquired Gregory Soto for Seth Johnson and Moises Chance. Gregory Soto has a 15.43 ERA and 4 2/3. He's allowed 8 earned runs. You gave up a pitcher who could be a pitcher, and that's enough. I don't even like the Orioles. I didn't put Trevor Rogers on there. Maybe you did, but he's just got so many years of control still that like him struggling right now. I don't think the Orioles thought that they could fix him in a minute. I think it's going to take an offseason anyway. So I'm not going to say that that's a bad deal, even though they just sent him back down because there's so much more to find out. But that, in my opinion, is the worst trade at the deadline so far. I mean, you traded 2 minor leaguers for a guy who is actively losing you games. Not just not doing that well. No, he has double the amount of earned runs as innings. And he's only thrown 4 of them. They don't even use him that much because he's gotten destroyed. That feels like a bad trade to me.
Yeah. 2 jumped out to me. 3 kind of jumped out to me. The Lane Thomas deal.
Yeah.
I viewed it as an overpay at the time. And I remember saying that on the Just Baseball show in the call up, like Clemmy and Tana for Lane Thomas. That felt like a lot. Lane Thomas, since coming over 17 games, hitting 109 with a 374 OPS.
The only reason I didn't add that one is because it is such a short sample for a hitter.
Yeah.
Like in a reliever who I already didn't like Lane Thomas just adjusting to a new environment. Like maybe he'll
like
turn it back
4
on.
2/3 innings, like that's not that large.
Yeah,
of a
but
sample.
he was already not that good.
Yeah.
Versus Lane Thomas, who was pretty good. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. So Lane Thomas jumped out to me. By the way, since August 1st, the 4 worst hitters in Major League Baseball by OPS among qualified hitters, all deadline acquisitions. Kyle Stowers has a 350 since August 1. Lane Thomas, Brian De La Cruz, who I also listed as one. Like that was just a really tough get for the Pirates. And like at the end of the day, man, like you have him for what, 3.5 more years? Like that's tough. He's a liability in the outfield. And he like, does he provide that much value? I know he was hitting homers for Miami, but like, it's not good. Stowers, Lane Thomas, Brian De La Cruz, Christopher Morel in Tampa. Those are the 4 worst hitters in baseball by OPS among qualified hitters since August 1. But
hand up. I thought the Rays could fix morale. Hand up.
Yeah, I mean, they can. It's been 16 games. But again, we're talking, 16 games after the trade deadline. The other one that jumped out to me was Randy Arozarena. Like, things are not going well for Randy. He has not found his footing offensively in Seattle. The Mariners have been on an absolute skid. And I just want to tell you about Brody Hopkins and Aiden Smith, the two prospects that went back. Aram tweeted about Aiden Smith, said that he will likely be a top 100 prospect at the end of season update. Brody Hopkins, meanwhile, 4 starts, 19 innings, a 3.32 ERA, 24 Ks, 6 walks. This guy's disgusting. Aiden Smith is a top 100 guy. Brody Hopkins is gross, and he's in year 2 of pitching full-time. And Randy looks like a shell of Randy still. That's a tough one to swallow for Seattle, I think.
Yeah, hearing that has got to suck for Mariners fans. Think about it. We've just been pouring gasoline on these fans for the last couple of weeks, and now we just lit a match.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It's tough. Welcome to Fever Pitch. The best that I ID'd.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Edman Kopech 3-way deal for the Dodgers has been massive.
I wrote that
Edman
down.
just being a warm body in that lineup is huge, but Michael Kopech, dude, 9 1/3, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 13 Ks. Kopech has been one of the better relievers in all of baseball since the trade deadline, but arguably the best reliever in all of baseball since the trade deadline. Lucas Urseg. Urseg is, I think, the best deadline acquisition, and I know that Jeff Passan tweeted about that this morning. Urseg, 10 1/3, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 14 Ks. And Lucas Urseg has 5 more years of control. Kansas City needed bullpen help bad, and they might have found their closer.
So I'll fill in the cracks. I also wrote down Urseg. I also wrote down that Kopech deal. How about Josh Bell for a player to be named later, or Cash?
Mm-hmm.
He has an 802 OPS with them, with the Arizona Diamondbacks so far. Arizona Diamondbacks just stole Josh Bell for basically nothing, and they got a hitter with an 800 OPS. I'm sure a lot of teams would love a hitter with an 800 OPS right now. Also, another one that I think is pretty damn solid. Dave Stearns kind of getting in his bag, going to get Paul Blackburn from the A's for Cade Morris. 3 excellent starts and 1 blow up against his former team. Maybe could be expected. They've seen you so much. They know what to expect. They got to you. But the Mets, they didn't. I think this guy is like on the back end of their top 30 prospects for a guy in Paul Blackburn who's pitching like a really solid pitcher. And we forget the man was an all-star. Like, he can pitch. So the fact that they got him for almost nothing, I think was a good trade too. Not as good as the ones that you mentioned. I also had those written down, but other good trades that I noticed.
Got you. We're going to get to the rest of the mailbag here in a moment. Before that, we'll take a quick break. Okay, back to the mailbag. This one comes from FEW_IV, the fourth, on Instagram. And this is an ABS question. I know that we've talked about this a couple of times, but I saw it got a little bit of engagement on Instagram. So it was like, hey, you know what? You might as well just rehash it a little bit. Question is, how do we feel about the ABS system for determining strikes or balls? Should we keep umpires back there with an earpiece and then calling strikes, or just the pitcher and hitter get 1 challenge an inning or 1 every at bat? I hate how crucial moments in innings are killed by bad calls, or that 2-0 pitch that is a ball, calls a strike. It's a good question. As somebody that has been around it for several years at this point, I will tell you, umpire wearing an earpiece and getting the automated ball and strike fully is the worst thing in the freaking world, because there's no zone malleability whatsoever. You miss the corner by a millimeter, you're not getting that call, which sucks. I love the element of human error in umpiring. Having said that, I hate when it decides a game. The International League. So the PCL is still doing the challenge system full-time with 3 available challenges per team. The International League is doing the ABS challenge system full-time. So they got rid of the full ABS. Thank God. They're doing the challenge system with 2 available challenges per team per game. If you win the challenge, you retain that. So it's like, hey, you know, you challenge for the first time in the 4th inning. It's a 2-1 count. It's called a strike. You know, hitter taps the top of his helmet. They overturn it to a ball. That team still has 2 challenges left. It's 2 challenges available to lose in a given game. This is the closest thing I've seen to something that is ready for the big leagues. It's not going to be there in 25. I think it can be there in 2026. The zone is inconsistent based on ballpark, I think, where the reaches of the zone to the inside and outside might be skewed by just like camera placement in center field of the high speed cameras that determine that. Um, but I do think that this two available challenge system is going to be what you see in Major League Baseball in a couple of years.
I think that's the perfect world. If we can get it similar to how it's called on the base paths, where there's still human error involved, but if you think that they are wrong, you can challenge it, but still keeping human error within there. I don't want a pitcher not to be able to earn the corners anymore.
Yeah.
It kind of takes out the art of pitching. I
Yeah.
also don't want the framing by a catcher to become obsolete. I don't want that. I think it's an important part of the game. I think it's an important part of being a catcher, and I still want that in the game. Now, if there is a low ball on Aaron Judge in the ALCS and they call it a strike on him, I would love the opportunity in a big moment to challenge that ball strike call. And if you win, you get another challenge. If you lose it. That would be my ideal way to deal with half Robo Umps, half not, because I don't want to take out the fun intricacies of baseball. Now, there's some times where it's annoying. I know we watch a ton of baseball. We feel the same as you do. But the overwhelming majority of it is better, I think, than the negatives.
Right.
But can we slightly fix those negatives where you can challenge? That's what I want. I don't want a straight robot strike zone where you can't earn the corners or catchers framing is obsolete. That would be perfect for me personally.
Yeah. So I think that's
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Or do you want away with it all?
No. I agree with that. Like
Okay, cool.
I think that what we have now is the closest thing that we get to a solution. And like watching big league games, I'm like, that call sucks, and there's nothing that we can do about that. But dealing with some minor league games, dude, it's just like, I watch some and I'm like, this is getting egregious with the number of challenges. And, it's like, this is so close. The full ABS was the worst thing ever. So I'm totally fine with this. But we'll go to the next question here. This one from Tommy_Hone on Instagram. Who of the teams that are contenders / competing for a playoff spot could be rebuild candidates within the next couple of years? I know you really didn't have one. I had one to throw out there. I think a lot of these teams are set up for sustainable success.
Me too. And also before, so just to unveil the curtain, when we were collecting all of these questions, I asked Jack, should we delete this one? And the reason I said that was when I was looking at the contenders, I thought, there's Zoom giving me a thumbs up. I thought to myself, I don't really see any. Like, I could come up with a narrative. We talk about that all the time and pitch you on something that we don't truly believe. And me personally, I didn't truly believe that any of these teams could be rebuilding. The last time we answered this question was before this season started, and all of us were aligned on the Blue Jays.
Yes.
That ended up probably looking like a good answer to the question. But now looking at the current contenders, there's a lot of young, fun teams that I really like. Now, I have a couple off the top of my brain that I think could potentially, but I'm not nearly as sold as I was with the Blue Jays. So I wanted to preface it with that I don't think we're truly dead set on these answers, but to answer the question, I think we can kind of do it to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, there's only one that I'm kind of convinced on, and it's Houston, because Bregman's up, Pena hits arbitration next year, Kyle Tucker is up after next year, Chas McCormick is up after 2026, Verlander's up after this year, Fromber up after 25, Urquidy up after 25, Luis Garcia after 26, Brian Abreu after 26.
Yeah.
Things are going to get really expensive, and you have $35 million or something committed to Jose Altuve when he's 37 years old. You got Yordan long term. That's awesome. Ronel Blanco is 30 years old, and he's, like in year one of big league service at this point. The farm system is not good. Like, they traded a lot in the last couple of years. So I see a world where things get too expensive for Houston, and they got to tear this thing down.
Definitely. I just think it's going to be a few years. Like, I don't think when we answer that question, it was like the Blue Jays might be happening sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
don't think
agree.
there's an answer for 25.
Like, I
For
think the
24.
Astros are going to be really good next year.
Yeah.
Right. And I also think that they're going to spend some money. I think they're going to keep some of these guys. This is not an Astros team that never spends any money. They're willing to spend when they see fit.
Yeah.
So will they be able to retain some of those guys that you named? Like, I looked at some of them. I was like, I feel like the Astros are going to re-sign some of these guys. Maybe not all of them, but then use some of that money to go get more pieces and still be good. But to answer the question, the Astros are the most set up to be a potential rebuild among all of the contenders. I thought maybe the Twins, but I was like, no, not really. Because I was like, if they lose some of their top end, maybe some older talent here, but and I was more thinking about injuries. Like, would they? That was the only one that I could possibly think of. And that's not even a good answer. So, but I
No,
brought
I
it
mean,
up. But
they have 2 top 10 prospects in
yeah,
baseball in Walker
yeah.
Jenkins and Emmanuel Rodriguez. And then you've got, Zebby and Simeon Woods Richardson and Festa
But that's
factoring
what
in
I'm saying. Like,
rotation.
are those besides those top two hitting prospects, and I love them.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the system actually that good? And they keep cutting back payroll, and like, for example, Lopez is probably going to leave at some point. Like,
That
that's why I was
system
like,
is good.
maybe.
That system is good with a Keyshaw and a Culpepper, and yeah, like there are guys.
I'm a
Both.
minor league casual, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
for
you
saying that.
bet. That
Yeah.
system is pretty darn good. So
Okay.
that's where we're at. Next one is a really interesting one. This has to do with relievers turning into starting pitchers. This question comes from Legan02 on Instagram. With the apparent success of relievers turned starters like Seth Lugo and Garrett Crochet and vice versa, like Mason Miller, who's next? Majors or minors? Thought that was an interesting caveat there.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find relievers to go to the bullpen or to go to the rotation. It's really hard.
Yep.
Luis Ortiz has already made that move. Like I kind of thought it was interesting that he was a reliever this year, but he's, going to be in the rotation for the Pirates. Kopech, if they ever want to try that rotation thing again, he's got starter pedigree. I didn't have a single good answer for bullpen to rotation.
I have two answers that I think are good that might not be good, but I'm coming in with some confidence.
Okay.
I'm coming in with some confidence. And I have one in the American League and one in the National League. And the National League one is a super deep cut. In the American League, a guy who I think can make the transition from the bullpen to the rotation is Griffin Jax of the Twins. Throws 5 pitches. Now, he came up as a starter, and it did not work. Through 82 innings, gave up 23 home runs, he allowed 23 bombs. He had a 6.2 ERA. But like I said, he came up as a starter. He's throwing 5 pitches, and I look back at his stuff when he first came up as a starter. He was a 4-pitch guy whose fastball averaged 92.6. He averages 97 now. This looks like a different pitcher. And almost sometimes when I watch Griffin Jax, I think to myself, do you really have a starter build? Just because he doesn't look that big. But then I look at his height and weight, like he's 6'2", 200. I think this guy has good enough stuff to get guys out for multiple innings. Now, can he maintain 97 through 5 or 6 innings? I have no idea. But can he maintain 94, 95 with 5 pitches? He's got good enough command. I think that he could transition back into the rotation for the Twins if they needed him. What do you think about that one?
I like it. It's also funny because I think the 2 Air Force Academy alum in the big leagues are Jax and Skeens. And like Skeens is so routine oriented. Yeah, electric.
What a duo.
Skeens is like super routine oriented, and that's become abundantly clear. Like I feel like Jax could get into a starter's routine and be like, yeah, I'm regimented.
That's a great point that I didn't even think about. I mean, that matters.
It totally matters. Like how you operate on a day-to-day matters. And I think he likes answering, the call each time out of the bullpen, and he's really good at it. But I think he could handle the routine pretty well. Who's your National League guy?
Here's one that I could completely fall flat on my face, and he might not be in Major League Baseball in a little while, but I like this reliever, and the Giants have proven that they're able to take Jordan Hicks and make him a starter. I know it didn't really last long, and I don't know if I see you smiling. You're thinking I'm going to say Ryan Walker. I'm not saying Ryan Walker.
No.
I'm going to say Eric Miller. Eric Miller throws 3 pitches. all have been really solid between a fastball, a slider, and a changeup. He rocks a really high ground ball rate, 52%, really high strikeout rate, nearly 30%. His issue, really bad command. But he's 6'5", he's 240 pounds. I like his delivery. It's smooth. It's not a ton of levers. So that's why I'm kind of unsure why his walk rate is so big, but he's 26 years old. Again, he's a lefty who can touch 98 miles an hour. If he's in the mid 90s, rocking a ground ball rate like that while striking guys out, if he's able to refine the command a little bit, I think there's a starter profile in there. And he's a guy who, hasn't thrown a ton of innings this year, but when I turn on Giants games, I'm like, who's that? He's pretty good. And his numbers, like as a reliever, he's been carving.
Yeah.
What would you say?
And he opens a good deal too. Like
he's been an opener 10 times.
Yeah.
I think he could be a 5-6 inning guy.
I like that shout. That's a good shout.
It could just be horrible, but I think he's got something. I wouldn't be surprised if next year it's like, Spencer Bivens was giving them like 3-4 inning kind of outings after they get 1 inning of an opener. Like, I think that could be his role. And then it's like, wait a minute, just give us 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he can. But we'll see. That was more of a deep cut.
Fair. No, it's a very deep cut.
Yeah.
I've got 3 starters that jumped out that I think could totally tick up in a move to the bullpen. One of them just hit the injured list. Luis Gil. Like,
yeah.
Gil could be a closer with the stuff.
Dominant one.
A dominant closer. So Gil was the easy answer for me in terms of big leaguers. I've got 2 prospects for you. Ricky Tiedemann keeps on getting hurt. You put that guy in a 1-inning spurt, I think that slider could be one of the nastiest pitches in Major League Baseball.
I think you got Josh Hader.
Essentially, he's a bigger guy than Hader, but he attacks from, that similar slot.
Profile. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tiedemann could absolutely tick up in the bullpen, and maybe that it feels like the Mason Miller thing where you have immense talent, he just cannot stay on the field, and this could be the way to keep him on the field.
Or he becomes Nate Pearson.
Or that too, which would suck.
Yeah.
The other guy is Jacob Mizorowski, and that's kind of a cheating name because he's already essentially made the move to the pen. He's made 3 appearances out of the bullpen in Nashville. He has started 2 games in AAA. He's made 5 appearances in AAA. His first 2 starts, an inning, no hits, 2 runs because he walked 3 and he hit a batter. Then he went short. 2 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 3 Ks. 3 appearances out of the bullpen to this point for Jacob Mizorowski. Inning and 2/3, perfect, 2 punch-outs. 2 perfect, 3 punch-outs. 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 1 hit batter, no walks, 2 punch-outs. He hasn't walked anybody in 3 outings coming out of the bullpen, and his shit looks gross.
Yeah, he's disgusting.
He's disgusting.
I love that one. I didn't really go into my bag to move from a starter to a bullpen role because it's a decently easy exercise when you say, all right, this guy can't throw strikes. He's got nasty stuff. Just throw him in the pen. Like Edward Cabrera comes to mind of a guy who just, has clearly not made it as a starter. But would he be nasty in a bullpen role? Absolutely. So Luis Gil fits that profile. But I still have faith that Luis Gil can be a starter. I know he just hit the IL, but those starts where he's not walking 4 guys, like he's nasty. I mean, he's got really, really good stuff. And I just think if we refine his command a little bit more, I still think he can stick in this rotation. He's been great this year, even with the command problems. So I think he could be a dominant closer, like you're saying, but I also think that there's room there to be a dominant starter. So I would be hesitant to move him. I could understand it for this postseason run, but also like kind of need him in the rotation a little bit. I mean, Nestor's still good. Stroman looked great against the Tigers. Schmidt's going to be back. Of course, we're down in Cole. So, yeah, I mean, do I want to put him in the bullpen for the postseason run? I could see it, but we also kind of need him. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, 2 more questions here. This one has to do with the sophomore slumps. Who's been the biggest disappointment in their sophomore season? I've got a lot of answers.
Me too.
And I could do like the stat dive. I don't really think we need to do the stat dive. I think we can just say their name and it'll be pretty self-explanatory. The biggest one to me is James Outman with the LA Dodgers. James Outman went from what, 4.5 win season, third in rookie of the year voting, to spending 100 games in AAA. Nolan Jones has been hurt, but Jordan Walker is certainly there. Like James Outman, Jordan Walker, Zach Geloff is a name that jumped to mind as well. Is hitting under 200, really struggling. And then Edouard Julien, his OPS is down, I think, 200 points. That's my hitting crop of disappointments.
Yeah, absolutely. I had all those guys written down. Julian finished 7th in Rookie of the Year voting last year. His OPS was 840, down to 682. James Outman finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting, 790 OPS. This year, 520. Nolan Jones, 4th in Rookie of the Year voting, 931 OPS last year, 601 OPS this year. And Geloff, the only thing is, the problem is it was such a short little stint, so I didn't write him down. But of course that fits the narrative. The games played, I was like, is this like his sophomore season? Yeah,
Right.
Kind of. And it does fit the question. So
right. And then Jordan Walker, obviously.
Yes.
We've talked enough about Walker over the
I
last
feel like
week
it's not even fair to say this is Jordan Walker's second season. Like,
I
they
know,
didn't even
but it
give him
is
a real shot, but it
It
is.
is, man. And then two pitchers jump to my mind. Bobby Miller with the Dodgers, and I know some of that has been injury related, but I was expecting a humongous year from Bobby, and unfortunately, we just haven't gotten it. And then Logan Allen with the Guardians. I was hoping that Allen would be a huge help in this Guardians rotation, especially when, Bieber left so early and McKenzie went downhill so early. I was like, okay, you need, Gavin to get healthy, but like Bobby and Logan Allen can hold it down. Logan Allen is in AAA.
Yeah.
He's been there for quite some time now.
Yeah. I had those two written down as well. So
Easy.
I cannot believe Bobby Miller. I can't. Like,
Eight
especially
starts at an 8.
It was so, because we saw him pitch super well. We met him in person, had conversations with him at Walker's golf event, and I was just like, yep, this guy is the man. Like, he's a beast.
Humongous.
Absolutely. And that just shows how tough baseball is. Get a weird tweak and you're not yourself, and you just get bombed now because the margins are that thin with so many elite hitters. I still have full faith he's going to come back and be totally fine. It's just, I was shocked how bad he's been this year. Shocked.
Yeah.
And almost like I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But I have to.
No doubt. Okay. Last but not least, our videos are Peyton. He brought this up at the All-Star break, and I saw him comment it on Instagram, and I was like, okay, we need to do this. This one comes to us from @PeytonGuinness on Instagram. Top 5 sneaky bald players in Major League Baseball. And by that, he means, guys that they take their hat off, and it's the King Neptune thing from SpongeBob. Bald. You know what I'm talking about? But I settled on 3. I couldn't find 5.
Here, let's go back and forth. So you go, then I'll go.
All right. So Garrett Crochet, sneaky bald. Now,
Mitch Haniger, sneaky bald.
Okay. Did you call him too? He told me that Mitch Haniger was bald.
No, I texted Lyle and TJ. I was like, just making sure. Mitch Haniger is bald, right?
Mitch Haniger's bald.
Because I remembered that from our conversations.
Yeah. So Garrett Crochet bald, Haniger bald, Royce Lewis also bald.
Mookie Betts, sneaky bald.
He's bald. Not sneaky. He's noted bald.
Sure.
And then Tanner Scott. I had no idea Tanner Scott was bald.
I had Tanner Scott written down as well. Christian Walker.
Yeah.
I think he's sneaky bald.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm out. I'm tapped out. I had 3.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down Goldschmidt as well, but I feel like people know that he's bald, but kind of sneaky bald if you didn't know.
Right. With the facial hair too. Can be a little deceiving.
One guy that's not in Major League Baseball anymore, but I think it's crazy that he is bald because his beard was so big. But Rougned Odor, sneaky bald guy.
Odoris.
But he's a free agent.
Odor being bald was crazy. Yeah. You're right.
Garrett Crochet, I think, is the most sneaky bald guy in Major League Baseball. Like, you take off his hat and you're like, what?
Hair.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So bizarro. But that's what we got, man. That's the mailbag.
Hopefully everybody enjoyed the mailbag. Unfortunately, Aram could not join us. He is moving to Florida, so wish him well. Safe travels. He's moving in down there, and can't wait to go see his new place. So that's why Aram wasn't on this episode, but come Monday, we'll be doing the weekend roundup. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. But the best way to support is leave a written review on Apple Podcasts, but you can also leave a 5-star review. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It is the best way to support this show. Another good way to support this show is to go get your Just Baseball merch. I'm rocking my Just Baseball hat, and Jack McMullen came to play today. He's rocking a Just Baseball. What is that?
Nope.
Oh
I'm
my
supporting
God,
our friend Rob Friedman.
Oh,
I'm
he's
supporting a
such an
pitching
asshole.
ninja thing.
Oh, he's actually doing another company's merch. Don't be like Jack.
But he's a friend, is he not?
Well,
He's
he is a
of the
friend and
show.
I do love him. But as I'm doing the merch pitch, you're wearing somebody else's merch. Don't be like Jack. Go get your merch in the episode description. Need tickets this weekend? Game time. Remember, promo code Just Baseball. Get $20 off. Put that in the profile section. Gambling this weekend? Make sure to use code Just Baseball on BetMGM.
Gambling this weekend?
I will be. For Jack
Deploying
McMullen.
units this weekend?
For Jack McMullen, I am Peter Apple. Have a great weekend, everybody. And with that, thank you, everybody.